streaming live on YouTube and X. And I wish it would stream on TikTok too, but I'm still waiting for the application to go through. Again, it used to be able to stream on TikTok, but not anymore. So we'll be going through 2 rounds. We'll be going pretty quickly today, quicker than last week, but this will be up on YouTube and X if you miss it afterwards. And, it's Lucas, I wanted to ask you live to see what you think. Maybe you want to enjoy it on your own, but I'm planning to apply for this to go on TikTok too, because I don't want to do a separate stream for TikTok. 3 hours during the draft. And just go for each pick, analyze.
That'd be sick.
I don't know if you're down for that, but we can do that. I'm definitely doing it by myself for a live show, but if I'm inviting you to come on at least for a bit, if you want to come on like Peyton Manning and Eli have Bill Belichick on, you'll be the Bill Belichick. But here we go.
Make a little appearance.
Here we go. So you want to start it off? We'll be going through 2 rounds right here, and I think it's going to be pretty sick to go through 2 rounds.
So, we're going to be doing the same as we did last time, basically, how we think it's going to go mock draft rather than what we would do mock draft, considering we're a week away now. So I'm starting with the odds this time. Brandon's got the evens, so I'm making the pick for his 49ers today. But starting off with the Titans, I think we all know that Cam Ward is the guy they're going with. Saw him the other day on Twitch, I think maybe, where he was talking about how his best receivers are like Treylon Burks and Calvin Ridley, and the best running backs are Ty and Pollard. So I think it's no secret that it's Cam Ward going to the Titans at 1. Don't really need to spend too much time talking about it, honestly, because it seems like that's what they're doing. So
that's a guarantee. The draft starts at 2, but it really starts at 4, because I think 2 and 3 are pretty much, from what I've heard, from the sources I've heard, are pretty much locked to be Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter. So I'm going to go Travis Hunter too. And I'm really glad that they finally came to the realization that Travis Hunter was the best player in the draft and that Shedeur Sanders was simply not a first-round talent. And I'm not trying to hate on Shedeur. I like his processing skills a lot. I think he's one of the more accurate quarterbacks in the draft. Love what he can do, right? But at the end of the day, I really think that second overall pick, you have a boatload of needs. You have a few quarterbacks on a roster. You're still paying Deshaun a lot of money, whether or not they get out of that. Regardless, doesn't matter. They have Joe Flacco now, right? So I think, and they're infatuated with Jalen Milroe, who they love apparently. So it's going to be basically they'll be holding each other for king's ransom, the Saints and Browns, when it comes to that end of the first round, early second, on who's going to get Jalen Milroe, because it seems like one of those 2 teams is going to do it. If the Saints don't take Shedeur at 9, he could fall out of the first round. So Travis Hunter is the pick there. Generational talent, literally a definition of that, simply because we've never seen it, right? Like we could say, what would be like a century talent? Is there a term for that? I don't know what you would say there.
A millennial talent,
I guess. Yeah, I guess. I mean, that's how we've never seen someone that is the CB1 and the wide receiver 1 in the same draft, right? I do think that he's a little too skinny to play both at the snap share that he probably wants to, but I think he will end up being a wide receiver primarily and playing some like depth snaps at corner personally, because the money's at wide receiver. And I truly think he moves a lot like CD, Jefferson, Garrett Wilson, like we've talked about. So that's my pick there. I don't think there's anything to talk about. I know who you're picking at 3.
Yes, sir. 2 is a little bit too rich for quarterback when it comes to how good the quarterbacks in this class are. And in the same situation as that, number 3 is also a little bit too rich for the caliber of quarterbacks that we have in this class. So the Giants, considering Brian Dable and Joe Shane pretty much got a playoffs or bust ultimatum from the ownership. They got to do whatever they can to win right now. And the best way to do that is by adding blue chip players, and there are 2 guys that are, considered that in that top tier as the top 2 players in the class. That's Travis Hunter and that's Abdul Carter. And they are able to get one of the 2 with this selection here. So I think it's a pretty easy pick. You go with Abdul Carter. This is probably going to force out Kayvon Thibodeau, I would guess. So they might be looking to trade him on draft night to maybe move up at some point, maybe some point in day 2, or they could use him as ammunition to go up. To go ahead and move up for a guy like Shador or Dart or Milrow at the back of the first round if they think that that might help them win games this year. But yeah, Abdul Carter's the pick. Seems like that's kind of the consensus amongst the insiders right now.
So this is where it gets interesting because at pick 4, I would draft Ashton Genty here. I'm not the general manager. Mike Vrabel loves toughness, physicality. It seems like, in my mock today, my final mock that I posted, which y'all should check out on the Sporting Tribune, I think it's pretty much a lock to be Will Campbell if Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter are off the board. I mean, Vrabel loves trench play. Will Campbell just kind of seems like a tough physical guy that, is a building block, protect the quarterback. Drake May is obviously way more talented than Ryan Tannehill ever was. No offense to Ryan Tannehill. I mean, that is a number 1 seed he got one year, made the AFC title game, although that was mostly on the back and shoulders of Derrick Henry. But still, nonetheless, they're going to go line there. I mean, it could be Membu, it could be Campbell. I think they're going to go Will Campbell, though. It's been probably, he's had a weird draft process where he was the consensus 1 going into the year, top 3, 4 pick, fell to like 10 to 15 on some people's boards, and now it's kind of trending back up after the barely, I don't know what he ate that morning to get his arms like 2 inches longer, but not really 2 inches longer, maybe like 2 centimeters longer, but he got that 33 threshold, right? He barely got it. It's like 33 inches on the dot.
I
Right?
think, yeah, I think it was around 33, but still like 34 is kind of like what they look for, but 33 is obviously way better than anything in the 32s. But yeah, I guess whoever was doing the arm measurements at the combine this year was kind of just not doing it right because there were so many combine arm measurements that were like significantly
Dude,
shorter than pro day or all-star game measurements.
how
So
about, before you go into your 5th pick, how about Jaden Blue being listed at 6'1" at Texas and 5'9" at the combine? What are
yeah,
your thoughts on that?
it's always just so funny when you see how different some of the heights are for some of the guys, because like 6'1" to 5'9", I mean, that is a huge difference. Like that's a crazy one, but it's like every time you see a college receiver who's listed at like 6'5" or 6'4", you can always count on, okay, yeah, this dude's 6'2", 6'3", maybe 6'4". It's a breath of fresh air when you get the guy that's actually as tall as he says he is, like that's very rare, but I love it when that
Like Ted
happens.
McMillan, I guess. Well, even he
Yeah,
was like
Ted
an inch
Ted
shorter,
was
right?
like an inch shorter. Yeah. I don't know. I just feel like for GMs maybe and kind of and football organizations, it's like, wouldn't you want the guy who's not lying about his height? Like, doesn't that integrity mean a little bit maybe? So I think that it would go into the eval a little bit, but obviously, I mean, not very much. That's not something you really need to look into that much. But
Also, I don't think there's much of any suspense with 5. I mean, they could go Genty, right? But who do you think they go here?
yeah, I mean, we're gonna probably keep it chalk and go with Mason Graham here. I think this is the safe pick for them. Mason Graham is one of the true blue chip talents in this class, along with Genty. But Mason Graham would kind of help complete that defensive line for the Jags. I mean, you got Trayvon Walker, who's coming along nicely. You got Josh Allen, who's great off the edge on the other side. So adding Mason Graham in on the interior with Eric Armstead, you got him too there. So that is a defensive line that's going to absolutely get after opposing quarterbacks. And I think that's going to help the Jags contend in a pretty weak division. I think obviously Genty could help the offense significantly, and Liam Cohen might want to make his mark on his first draft pick by, choosing an offensive player. But I think that he could probably find a good enough complement to what he has right now on the roster on day 2 in the draft at the running back position. So,
Yeah. Yeah. So I think those 5 are almost locked to be the first 5 picks. 6 is where the draft starts, right? Because we kind of assume that the Raiders are going to draft Ashton Genty here. There's definitely a scenario they take Armand Membu or Jade Barron or Will Johnson. I definitely think there's a scenario with those. I just can't, like, the thing is when I've talked to people that were either at the, his pro day, Boise, or people that are close to the people that were. I mean, you listen to what was being said at his pro day, and they're like, there were teams there just going there to watch him just for the heck of it. Maybe he falls to pick 20 or whatever. Denver was definitely there. And I think it was Denver that was overheard saying, man, I wish I had a top 10 pick in this draft. And there were other teams, man, I wish I had a top 10 pick in this draft. And you look at the Vegas odds, and again, I'm not saying sports books are the be all end all, but they're pretty indicative of what's going to happen. Like he's plus 120 to go to the Raiders and plus 140 to go to the Bears. And then the next team is like plus 700. So he's guaranteed to go in the top 10. It's either going to be, the Raiders or it's going to be the Bears. And the next team, by the way, is like the Jaguars or the Patriots, right? So like that would even be higher. So he's going to be going in the top 10. And I think this one I'm not going to spend much time on. He's a better prospect than most people think he is. Ashton Genty's the real deal. He's the next elite running back in the National Football League.
Yeah, I think that it's a great pick for the Raiders. Pete Carroll kind of built his Seahawks dynasty around an elite running back in Marshawn Lynch. So I think that there's a good chance that they try to reincarnate Marshawn Lynch with Ashton Genty. And yeah, I mean, what I've heard around the league, Ashton Genty is considered a future superstar. Like this guy is going to be dominant from the get-go, day one. He's going to be an instant contributor. And I think he's going to help that Raiders offense significantly, an offense that already is looking significantly better than what they were last year. But the Jets are up next at 7. And this is a pick that I'm having trouble with because they've been linked to Tyler Warren. They've been linked to Membu, who obviously doesn't get taken here by the Raiders. In my full 7-round mock, which I just finished the other day, this is exactly how my first 6 picks went. And I had the Jets take Warren at 7.
What's your gut tell you? Go with your gut. Go with your gut.
Yeah, in the last couple of days, I'm kind of flip-flopping, but I'm kind of leaning away from the Warren pick. I think Armand Membu is going to help the team more right now. I don't think that the tight end, I just think it comes down to positional value. Honestly, at this point, when you're evaluating 2 prospects who are as closely ranked to each other as they are, it depends on where the Jets have them on their board. I don't know exactly. I know they're interested in both. But I'm going to have them go with Membu here. I think my mind has changed on how this pick is going to go.
Well, and I think something interesting to note here, if there's any Niner fans watching or people that are interested in just the draft in general, is there was reports today from reputable Niner sources that say they're not taking an offensive tackle. And what that screams to me is Membu's not going to be there or Campbell, because I think they'd absolutely take Membu or Campbell if they were there at 11 over a Shamar Stewart, Will Johnson, or somebody like that. So that's pretty telling that Membu, if he doesn't go 6 or 7, that he's still probably going to go, latest 10 to the Bears, right? Who also could take Membu, even though they built their offensive line, they could absolutely take Membu there. This pick's pretty interesting. They've been linked to Jalen Walker for so long. I can't see another scenario. Like, to me, it's like all I've heard about is like when you look at Carolina, it's Jalen Walker. But you know what I'm going to do? I think they're going to surprise people and go Will Johnson at 8. I really do. I think like Will Johnson has alpha CB1 potential. I don't know why he's falling. The injury doesn't concern me. He is ideal size, 6'2", 6'3", to be an elite man corner, right? Like he's not bad in zone coverage either. Like, I mean, like I think he's going to take a lot of risks. He'll have, he has great ball skills. He'll have some penalties here and there. But I think him and JC Horn would be immediately one of the better duos in the league. I know they need an edge rusher desperately. I just think that, we've heard about Walker for so long, but I wonder if it's just like Walker's camp just pushing him out there more, because when I've talked to a lot of people, they think like us, like Walker's great, but he's 6'1". Like, do we want to take a 6'1" edge rusher at 8? Like, what are we doing here? Like, PFF is one of the more reputable businesses out there in terms of scouting. They don't even have him as a top 20 prospect, right? Like, what is he, 8, maybe 18? Jalen Walker, what is he? Let's see.
Yeah, he's a
24.
little down there.
24. So I mean, like that's probably adequate. I have him as the 19th or 20th ranked guy on my big board, so I think he's barely in that top 20. I think they go Will Johnson, shock people there, which will shake up the entire draft. I feel like because now you're like Jalen Walker's available. Do the Niners maybe take him at 11? Do the Bears take him at 10? Right? Like, do even the Saints take him at 9? Right? Because I think he was even linked to the Jaguars a few weeks ago before Mason
The
Graham was kind of
Patriots, the
locked in.
Patriots at 4 have been linked to him a little bit too. So, speaking of Jalen Walker, the Saints at 9, they met with him at a pro day, and at his pro day, and I, so I had Shador go to them in my 7 round mock. The last few days, reports have been even a little more lower on Shador than they had been the previous few weeks leading up to where we are now. Man, I just don't think the Saints are. I think the Saints with the Derek Carr situation are almost, looking at this like a 2-year rebuild where this year is going to be more about stacking the roster as much as they can with playmakers, whether it's offensively or defensively, just building, getting young again, because that is an old roster that's not ready to compete right now. They're not a quarterback away. So I think that they will probably be one of the teams who's maybe looking day 2 quarterback, maybe even a 4th round quarterback, and not necessarily Shador Sanders. Maybe, I know they've loved Jalen Milroe, so if they can get Milroe in the 2nd, I would think they would look at him. But I think in this scenario, they're going to look to find Cameron Jordan's replacement. And with Brandon Staley coming in, he's a guy who has liked that smaller edge rusher. And Jalen Walker kind of fits in perfectly here for the Saints, I think. So I'm going to go with Jalen Walker here at 9 to the Saints.
I can see it 100%. I could see Mike Green, but or James Pierce, but the character concerns for both of them. I mean, they're going to inevitably fall. I don't even have Pierce as a 1st-round pick anymore. Projection wise, like I think he probably falls to round 2.
Going to be a steal though.
Of course. I mean, we look, you and I both know he's a top 10 player in the draft, but top 10 to 15. But yeah. I think, people are truly concerned about his character. All right, pick 10 is interesting here. So with Genti off the board, for the longest time, I had, look, they're going to go this guy, 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 right? Hampton, Mike Green, they're going Shamar Stewart at 10. Like, if Genti's gone, I think that's the pick. Like,
wow,
they need a defensive lineman. They got a few defensive linemen. They've upgraded in the trenches. I'd be shocked if Shamar Stewart is available past pick 13 or 14. Like, if he doesn't go 10, he's going 11. And now I screwed up your pick because who are you going to take, Lucas, at 11 if Shamar Stewart goes 10? Because
yeah, you did.
Niners been linked to Shamar for a long time. So who would you take in this scenario?
So I mean, Walter Nolan is in the cards, I think, for sure. It has to be an edge or a defensive tackle. It just has to be. Like, the Niners have to get a day 1 contributor here with this pick. And, I'm looking through the guys that they've been meeting with, and it kind of seems like it's between Mike Green, Michael Williams, and Walter Nolan here. And I think I'm going to go with Michael Williams here. I think that he is kind of more in Robert Saleh's mold when it comes to defensive ends and guys who rush off the edge. That big, strong, athletic, can defend the run really well type of player. And I think that putting him across from Nick Bosa is going to take a lot of pressure off of him when it comes to developing as a pass rusher, because this is a guy that hasn't been insanely productive as an edge rusher in college. So he's kind of a projection at the position. But yeah, I think Michael Williams to the Niners is probably where I'm going to go here. So this run on edges is happening early here.
38th ranked prospect on PFF. I would let's just say I don't know
Don't
if
say it.
the doors
Don't
in
say
my
it.
house are safe. If they pick Mikal Williams, I'd be pretty frustrated as a Niner fan. I like him. I just don't trust Robert Saleh to develop him because he couldn't develop Javon Kinlaw. And great defensive coordinator. I just don't think he's probably the best player developer for guys that aren't like NFL ready, if that makes sense. I'm not saying Mikal isn't NFL ready. Like, I think he'll be a solid player, but he does fit that big edge rusher that they like. This pick's pretty obvious to me. I think they will take Tetero McMillan, especially like Jerry knows he has a good sense of like when the Cowboys are losing interest in media and in like fan base. And after last year, 8 wins, questions about Dak, not as much stardom besides CD and Micah. Get another guy that can maybe be a star in Tetero McMillan, who I think would immediately be one of the better wide receiver twos in all of football. I think they've had a need there for a long time. Get Dak another weapon. I think their defense is going to be better than people think. Just as it was last year, like they had guys that you never heard of all of a sudden start performing, like they always do. People want to like talk crap about the Cowboys a lot, but they're excellent at developing the offensive and defensive linemen. So I wouldn't jump to get like an OT who they did last year with Tyler Guyton, who jury's still out on him. They'd probably be able to develop him. And then I wouldn't go get a D lineman here. I'd just get one in round 2 or running back. I know they have a need at running back. Hampton could be a pick here, but Tetero McMillan just makes the most sense. And I'm not buying the fall. I think he goes relatively early in the draft.
Yeah, so Dolphins are at 13 here now, and I know the Colts are salivating. They're happy with the way the board is going right now with both Tyler Warren and Colston Loveland being available. I think they know that they're going to get one of the elite tight ends in this class that they want. For the Dolphins, while I do think that they could consider someone like Tyler Warren, I don't think they're the team that's gonna steal him from the Colts. With Jalen Ramsey being on the outs here, pretty much official that he's going to be getting traded. You got to think that they're going to be in that cornerback market. And with the Panthers going with Will Johnson at 8, that limits them significantly. I don't know if they are confident about Jahdae Barron's ability to play outside. He was good outside this year when he moved out there, but he projects, I think, as more of a nickel corner. So I think they're going to I think they're considering two players, mainly here. If you're not counting Barron or Warren, those are kind of on the outside here, in my opinion. I think they'd be considering Kelvin Banks if they want to help Tua out and help the run game out significantly, which I think that's what this pick would do, is really help Achane and, if they decide to draft another running back this year, help them be a little more efficient on the ground. But I think it's between Banks and then Matthew Golden. Just another speed demon wide receiver with Tyreek Hill getting older. We'll see what they do. So, yeah, kind of 3 Texas players here that they're considering, which is crazy. But I think I'm going to go with Banks here for them. I think Banks, I think it's easily their biggest need. I think corner's a need, but I think O-line is a much bigger need. And Kelvin Banks is plug and play wherever you want to put him. You can put him at right tackle where Teron Armstead just retired, or you could play him inside. He projects really well as a guard, I think. So we'll see what they decide to do with him. But I think I would love this pick for the Dolphins.
I would too. I think that's where they're going to end up going. I think they'd be, pretty dumb to not take a guard or tackle considering the injury history of Tua. And I talked about this on my TikTok live earlier, like get a pass pro guy. Like Banks is the best pass protector in the class. So, I mean, it makes sense for him to go there. Right. So look who falls to the Colts lap. Tyler Warren. Done. Don't even need to discuss it. They've been linked to, they're either taking Warren or Loveland. I don't think they're, maybe Jahdae they consider. But I think they go one of the two, and it seems like Tyler Warren is still here. So they're going to take Tyler Warren. Who do you got at 15?
Yep. So I just checked the guys that the Falcons have met with. I think that they really desperately need to bring in an edge rusher, and it seems like Mike Green's the top guy left, and they have been linked to him. So I think this Mike Green pick is pretty easy for them. They took a lot of shots in the draft last year. When it comes to pass rushers, a lot of them were interior guys. They drafted Braylon Trice, who tore his ACL in the preseason, so they didn't really get a look at him. But with him coming back and adding someone like Mike Green, I think that could really rejuvenate this Falcons pass rush.
Yeah, and I think Arizona, I'm going to make this quick. I think they take Jahdae Barron in this scenario. Everyone thinks they're going to take an
Ooh.
edge rusher or a D lineman. I just don't think they have the means or the personnel to develop Walter Nolan, considering they haven't been able to develop any other competent edge rushers pretty much in the last half decade. So like Walter Nolan's going to have to go to a place where he can be developed. I think Jahdae makes a lot of sense. They have a need at corner. He falls them. Him or Will Johnson. I've linked them to the entire time. So I think they take Jahdae Barron. Who do you got at 17 for Cincinnati?
Yeah, so I think the Bengals would be really unhappy with the way this draft is going right now, with how the edges flew off the board early. I think that it might be a little bit early for a guy like Iziraku at 17. So I think they settle for the next best thing when it comes to defense and getting pressure on the quarterback. And I think that's Walter Nolan here. Bengals have not really been a team that's been, you know, super what is the word I'm looking for? Careful, cautious about character concern guys. And I think that
Yeah.
Walter Nolan would be a great fit for them here on the interior. Just one of these potential blue chip players in the class on the defensive side. The Bengals need to get somebody who can be a day one contributor, and I think Walter Nolan is a good chance at that.
Got it. And we'll keep going here, but I wanted to, inform our listeners that I'm going to be doing I'm going to be live for all 3 hours of the NFL draft next Thursday, and my mock is up on the Sporting Tribune. I just came out with it today. Looks a little different than this, obviously, because we're switching off on certain picks, but this will also be available on YouTube and X afterwards if you guys are watching and want to go back and hear how we're evaluating these prospects and what we're hearing. And again, Lucas is the best evaluator I know. He literally was the only guy that I remember that was like Puka Nacua is the real deal. So ever since then, he's kind of goated in that respect. So I trust him. When he told me about Jaden Higgins 7-8 months ago, I mean, I'm the biggest guy in the Jaden Higgins train now. And, we both were out on Matthew Golden too. So, great minds think alike, even though I think Golden can be decent. But Seattle here, I think this pick's already a lock. I don't care how the board shapes up. I think they're taking Grey Zabel or Tyler Booker. I think they're guaranteed to take one of the two. I think they'll consider Shedeur Sanders, of course, here and Jackson Dart, but I think they end up going Grey Zabel. So who would have thought Grey Zabel goes before Shedeur Sanders? But that's how it's going to go.
I love that fit there. I think Zabel's a significantly better fit than Booker is with the Seahawks, with their Clint Kubiak coming in to be the new OC, with them being kind of a wide zone run scheme. So Zabel's a lot more athletic than Booker. Booker really had a bad combine, so you're going to need guards who can run and get to their spots when it comes to blocking on those stretches and outside zones. So I think Zabel would be a great fit. Tampa here at 19, I think that they would consider Colston Loveland. I think he would be a huge addition to that offense, to that passing game, with Kate Otton's contract coming up at the end of the year. But I think the Jihad Campbell fit just makes way too much sense. As I mentioned last time we did this, Devin White was a huge part of Todd Bowles' defense early in his career, like 2019 and 2020 when Bruce Arians was the head coach. And Devin White, very fast like Jihad Campbell, rushed the passer really well like Jihad Campbell could. So, yeah, playing that will linebacker kind of hybrid role where he's going to get his chance to rush the passer a lot next to Levante David. I think he could be a big contributor there in Tampa.
And by the way, I think this pick is a lock if he's available, this next pick. I love Jihad Campbell. I'm with you. I think he's a top 10 to 15 guy in this draft. And I think it's just a matter of time before he becomes one of the best linebackers in all of football. Pick 20, everyone's like, oh, they're going to take a receiver. Bro, they don't have any running back. They don't have a 3-down back. And Amarian Hampton's one of the rare, actual, legitimate 3-down backs in this class. They're taking Amarian Hampton if he's available there at 20. I don't think there's any question. If he's there, he's the pick.
Yep, I think that makes a whole lot of sense here for them. I think that'll be a big big addition to the Broncos offense. So the Steelers here at 21. Obviously, the Aaron Rodgers, he went on the Pat McAfee show today, and he kind of said a whole lot of nothing about his plans for the 2025 season, which I'm sure the Steelers are feeling awesome about that, that they are just, the situation is just getting murkier and murkier leading up to the draft where they don't know what they're going to do at quarterback. And meanwhile, you got Shedeur Sanders falling into your lap here at 21. What do they do? Right. So I heard from a source today, and this is, I mean, I don't know how credible it is, but I'm basing some information on it right now, that Shedeur, his meeting did not go well with the Steelers, and I believe what the tweet said and the reporter said, he is not going to be a Steeler, basically. So that leaves you to, do I want to take Dart here at 21? Do I want to take Milrow at 21? Do we just want to wait, with the quarterbacks falling the way they are? Maybe we'll be able to move up in the second, and get a quarterback, get one of these three dudes. And I think in this scenario, that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to take kind of their BPA on their board of a position of need. And I think that's going to be Derek Harmon, on the interior. I think Derek Harmon just provides a lot of juice for this defense. They've been linked to him all along, and interior is a need, I think. Yeah, I think the Steelers are going to be rocking with, it's either going to be Aaron Rodgers, Derek Carr, or Kirk Cousins that suits up for quarterback for them in 2025. Week one, at least. There's definitely a world where Dart or Milrow or even Shedeur is starting at the end of the season for them. But I think I would be shocked if their week one starting quarterback isn't one of those three veterans that I mentioned.
I agree. I think here, like Kenneth Grant will be considered, but this is a match made in heaven. I'm not even going to take too much time. If Loveland's there,
Wow.
yeah, if Loveland's there at 22, I mean, the Chargers are taking Colston Loveland. They've been linked to him early on in this process. I think Kenneth Grant might fall out of the first round based on the sources that I'm hearing, and it has nothing to do with his talent. I know some people personally. I don't even think he can be 3-down D tackle in the league. Like he's primarily like a run guy. So again, I'm not saying he won't go in the first round, but there's going to be a lot of talent that falls out of the first round. So.
All
Yeah.
right, so Green Bay at 23 now. I don't think they like the way this board has gone so far. I think I'm between two guys here for them to take, and that's based on 30 visits. I think that they could be looking at Matthew Golden. They definitely need to get Jordan Love a premier wide receiver, which I don't necessarily think Matthew Golden is going to be that. I think he's more of a complimentary option than a number one. But the problem with taking Golden here, with the Packers taking Golden, is Brian Gutekunst has never been a first round receiver guy. He doesn't take receivers in the first round. So that's kind of leading me away from him. And I think that my pick for them is going to be a more so a position of need. And that's going to be the Jair Alexander replacement. I think they're going to take Siobhan Ravel from Eastern
Wow.
Carolina here.
Good
I
player.
think that, yeah, I think he's a good player. He's coming off of the injury. I think it was an ACL, but he was really, really highly regarded before getting hurt early this season. Great athlete. I wish that we would have gotten to see him test. He is kind of built like Tariq Woolen, I would say, when it comes to the height, weight, speed thing. And I think that he'll just be an excellent playmaker on this Green Bay defense that really, really made a stride last year when it came to taking the ball away and just improving in general as a defense.
And I think another thing we have to know too is like they would take Jahdae Barron if he falls there. And there's a world where he does if the quarterbacks do go early and Arizona passes on him. I can see that for sure. Minnesota is possibly the weirdest pick in the entire draft. I do think what's going to end up happening and this might be a little crazy. I think what's going to end up happening is because they don't really have a position of need, I think they're going to trade with the New York Giants. I think the Giants are going to trade pick 34,
Oh my, you're throwing a trade in here,
65,
huh?
and 154. We'll give him 105 instead. 99, I'll let him keep for pick 24. Maybe that's too much. I don't know. What are you thinking? Is this a little too much right here? It's 10 spots. So I'm giving him a third and
I
a
think
fifth.
that I think that it would be maybe 105 would be like a swap maybe with 139.
Okay. We'll force this trade. Giants are going to trade back into the first round and select Shador Sanders here. They're the only team that I haven't heard any bad press on. I think they really like him. They met with him again, and I think he's the only that's the only organization that I think met with him like again recently. So I think they're pretty locked in. If he's I think they might get scared that the Rams take him at 26. I haven't heard about them being linked to Jackson Dart at all recently. So I'm going to make that trade. Minnesota doesn't really have any flaws. Sure, Malachi Starks would be great, but I think their defense is pretty set, and they can always get Nick Emmanwori maybe in round 2, or Xavier Watts in round 2 or 3 as well. So I think it's wise
Yeah.
that they would be the team to trade back. And I
Yeah,
have
so I heard a report the other day saying that if Shador Sanders is going to go early, it's going to be something where ownership really got involved, because the teams, the general managers, head coaches aren't necessarily as high on him as, some people are in the media, or, the owners that aren't necessarily in all these meetings when it comes to scouting players. So, and with the Giants owner, John Mara, it's Mara or Mara? I'm not sure how it's pronounced, but I think he has a little more leverage right now over Shane and Dable with the whole playoffs or bust ultimatum thing. So I think that they could be kind of forced into moving back into the first to, get a guy like Shador. And in this scenario, you take 3 shots at quarterback. You got three guys who are probably top 40 quarterbacks in the NFL when it's all said and done right now. And hopefully one of those guys will be able to get you 8, 9 wins, and get you near the playoffs. But
I
yeah,
don't hate it.
here's,
I don't hate
yeah,
24, like Shador at 24. I just hate him in the top 5. Like I think Shador is
yeah,
fine. Like I think Shador might be good right away, because people forget he's played like a bazillion college games and his accuracy and processing skills
super
are good.
accurate,
Yeah, so I mean,
super
I think
accurate.
as
Yeah.
long as he can get the ball out quick, which is going to be the big test for him, I think he can be pretty solid right away, especially if he sits 6 to 8 games at least behind Russell Wilson and Jameis and learns certain things. So
Yeah.
I think
On
that's honestly a good trade up for them.
Yeah, unfortunately, that was kind of Daniel Jones' problem with the Giants and with Brian Dable, is that he just couldn't get the ball out. So I'm sure Dable is going to really try to make sure that Shador can, or else he's just going to be Daniel Jones, basically. So the Texans now at 25. You have been super hot on Josh Simmons here with this pick. I think they definitely would consider Josh Simmons too. O-line is a major need for the Texans. I think in my mock I had Kelvin Banks falling all the way here, and that was kind of just a no-brainer. Josh Simmons is a guy who has been regarded as someone who might be the number 1 tackle in this class if he never got hurt, if he never had that patellar tendon injury that he sustained earlier this year. And that's going to be a big injury for an offensive tackle to overcome. I don't know what the medicals are, I don't know if he's been cleared and what they think, but the Texans have been very much linked to Matthew Golden in this whole process. And I think with Tank Dell being out for another full year, basically, I think receiver is a need, and they're going to just keep him local. He played at Houston before transferring to Texas. So bring him back to Houston and give CJ Stroud a vertical threat, another one like Tank Dell.
Grant's going to like this next pick. You know where I'm going with this pick. If he's available, this is who the Los Angeles Rams will take at 26.
Yep.
The successor to Matthew Stafford. Now, sure, they have a Super Bowl ready roster, if they could get somebody in the secondary here. But you look at it, Revel's gone, Jade's gone, Will Johnson's gone. I like Trey Amos there. I had him in my mock personally with Dart going higher. Like if it's not Dart, I think Trey Amos could be the guy there, or Darian Porter. But I think if Dart's there, that's who they're taking. They've been linked to him for a while. Like I've heard reports that they really like him. He fits kind of the quarterback McVay wants, kind of a gunslinger type of guy. Very Jared Goff Staffordy, except he's a little more mobile, but the arm talent is certainly there. His ability to take risks is there. So I think that's a pretty solid pick there at 26.
Yep, I think that if I'm confident in, one play caller to be able to develop Jackson Dart, it's, Sean McVay, Kevin O'Connell. I know I listed two when I said one, but it's those two basically are the two I feel the most confident in. So Dart, obviously there's tools and traits, and those are the building blocks, the foundation that you're looking for when you're trying to look for your future franchise quarterback. And if I was a Rams fan, I would have a love-hate relationship with this pick, I think, because I would want somebody who can contribute this year, considering this is a team that nearly got to the NFC Championship game last year. They're a couple pieces away from maybe being a Super Bowl contender. So Dart is probably not a guy who helps out with that. So it's tough to kind of think about this pick. But I guess you got to have kind of a long-term focus. And I think Dart gives them a really good chance to be winners in, 2028 or 2029, rather than kind of going back to the drawing board at quarterback after Stafford retires. So I like the pick. That's exactly who I have here for them in my 7-round mock. So with the Ravens now at 27, trying to see if there's anybody that's falling. And I think they could be in on Kenneth Grant here potentially, but I think the good connection here is James Pierce Jr. So I think that's who I'm going to go with here. They kind of have been trying to find a number one edge rusher and haven't been able to do that. They've been able to bring in a bunch of solid options, but they haven't gotten number one production yet. And I think James Pierce, being kind of that smaller 3-4 outside linebacker, is a great fit for this Ravens defense. And I think he could be that guy that is the number one they're looking for. So
Cool. Yeah, no, and this pick might shock you, Lucas, but I had him in my mock draft going here too. If Zabel's gone, I think they take Tyler Booker here at the Lions. They have a need at guard. Booker's not the most athletic, but he's got a big build and he's a technician kind of on that O-line. Rarely makes mistakes, right? Like he would be plus 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 as an anchor, right? Like if we were looking at his power and his anchor, his reactive athleticism needs a little bit of work, but I think he's a pretty solid player. Like I think it's like guaranteed he'll be a pretty solid NFL player, Tyler Booker. So I think that's what they're going to go with. Everyone thinks they're going to take a receiver, even though Burden's there and Emeka Egbuka is there and Jaden Higgins is there. I just don't think they're going to take any of those guys. I think they'd consider Higgins more so than Egbuka. They would never consider because they have St. Brown, right? And they play virtually the same position, slot receiver. Burden, also a slot guy, but I think is a little more versatile than that. The only guys I think they would consider there are Tyler Booker, Ezra Waku, right, from Boston
yeah,
College, and Tyler Booker, Ezra Waku, and of course, who might blank, Jane Higgins, because they need next, right? So like Jane Higgins would be the guy that they would look for in that position, or Ayu Manor, but I think they're probably higher in Higgins, like we are. So I think those are the only three guys they consider if the draft plays out like that. I think they would have considered James Pierce if he was there, Lucas, like 100%. Kenneth Grant,
yeah,
maybe Kenneth Grant, but I just like, Michigan guy, I could see it, but I think they roll with Tyler Booker there because guards, there's not many. There's 3 really good guards in this class, right? Like, and then that are 4: Milam, Ratledge, Booker, and Zabel, right? And then everyone's kind of like iffy on the others. You can make your conclusion whether you think some of the tackles are guards or vice versa.
yeah.
But
There's a lot of tackle to guard conversions. I think
but
that guys like more than like even Booker or Ratledge, which I love Ratledge, and Booker was great at Bama. So, they're both guys that I think could be easy starting guards in the NFL. So
100%. Who do you got here at 29 though?
all right, so 29 here for the commies. I think this is a pretty easy pick. It's exactly who I have them going with in my mock as well, and it's Donovan Iziraku. At the edge position, they pretty desperately need help in the pass rush game, and I think Iziraku is going to be the guy that they hope. Similarly to the Ravens with James Pierce, is kind of the guy that they're just hoping is that number one edge rusher for him going forward. So this is a defense that just they need help kind of any way they can get it. So
It's
I think
small,
he's
but
one
I
of the
like
best
him.
players on the board. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit small. He's like a 6'2", right? Like he's
Yeah.
taller than Jalen Walker, but his long arms and his bend and athleticism, solidified himself as a lock it in first round pick. And
Yeah,
I think
he's got a really weird build. He's got long arms for being 6'2". It's weird, but
like he has
so
longer
he's
arms than
got
James
length.
Pierce, right?
Yeah, maybe. I would have to check on that, but he's got such a weird build, I would say.
It'll
So
play. It'll play. He'll be one of the better like players from this draft. Like I think he's probably a 10-year pro. Like I think has a pretty long career if he stays healthy. Like kind of seems like that type of player. Like maybe he doesn't wow you as much as some of the other edge rushers, but I think he'll just be very productive as an NFL
yeah.
player. If you watch the tape, it kind of
So
yeah. Go ahead.
of those like top 10 edges, he's only got shorter arms than Shamar Stewart and Michael Williams, who are both like 6'5".
Yeah, so he does
So
have longer arms than
yeah.
6'5" James Pierce, 6'5" Nick Scarton, 6'5" Princely, right? Like,
Yeah.
so I mean, yeah, for sure. Pick 30, man. This has been an interesting one for me. I'm going to pick the guy. Well, I'm going back and forth here. I just don't think Igbuka can fall out of the first round. He's just too safe of a pick. I like Kenneth Grant a lot. If he's on the board, they'll consider him, but I think they're going to go with Emeka Igbuka. I know they have Khalil Shakir and they play very similarly, but I just think getting Allen another like Igbuka just makes sense, right, Lucas? Because he's very safe. Like there's like not a red flag with him. We kind of know what he's going to be. He's going to be a pretty solid NFL player, perhaps never a wide receiver one, but his route tree is off the charts. He's probably a super discounted JSN or Amon-Ra St. Brown wide receiver 2. And I think him and Shakir could probably play off of each other very well. I could see Jaden Higgins, but I don't think they go Jaden Higgins there simply because they have Keon Coleman as their ex and they just spent a first round pick on him, right? And obviously Higgins is a better player than Keon Coleman, in my opinion, and will be a better player, but I don't think they can take that risk. Perhaps Kenneth Grant there, but I think they'd only consider Igbuka and Grant there.
Yeah, the Bills passing offense was so weird last year down the stretch. Like after they traded for Amari Cooper, they kind of just were like, we don't need to use Amari Cooper. And they like ran it through Shakir and like Mac Hollins here and there. And Keon Coleman got a couple games with a few receptions. So it was just kind of gross. And I don't really know what the direction is with their pass game. Honestly, they didn't let Dalton Kincaid play that much because he can't block as well as Dawson Knox, so he was not seeing the field all that much. When he's probably like their number one playmaker in as a weapon in the receiving game. So yeah, I don't know. The Bills confused me last year, and Ibuka would be weird, like with Shakir, like you said, it would be a little bit redundant with their play styles, but also like Coleman and Higgins are pretty redundant. So
Yeah.
I don't know what they would do. Either way, like, yeah, the Bills are funky when it comes to what they're going to do offensively. I guess it helped Josh Allen be a little less turnover prone, and he won the MVP, but he had a weird season and I didn't like it, I would say,
Toward
even
the
though he
end,
won the MVP.
Allen was playing a bit. He had that one stretch that locked up the MVP against like the Rams and Chiefs, and where he was like the best quarterback we've ever seen for like a 5-game stretch. And then it was very James Cook heavy after that. And I think the offense
Yeah, I
is
mean,
again.
I don't think he threw for 4,000 yards, and that's gross for Josh Allen. Like, that's gross. Like, I'm pretty sure he had like 3,900 yards or something like that passing. So yeah, just kind of
Yeah,
gross in my
37.
opinion, but yeah, so which is so weird for Josh Allen and for an MVP quarterback, but he had a bunch of rushing yards, pretty sure he had like 600 rushing yards and he had like over 40 total touchdowns. And kept the turnovers down, obviously, and that's probably a byproduct of throwing the ball less.
They
So,
gave him an MVP to like he should have won in 22,
yeah,
and maybe 21, and they or I might have gotten those years mixed up, but he should have already had one. So it was kind of like what they do in the NBA, which is why they'll give Shai Gilgeous-Alexander the MVP this year when Nikola Jokic is easily the MVP. Having like
yeah,
arguably the best single season ever, they'll give him like a makeup MVP. Like that's what they
yeah,
did. Like Lamar Jackson had the best stats. Joe Burrow had the second best stats, and Josh Allen had the third best stats. Yet Josh Allen was the MVP. Really odd scenario. I mean, I would have been fine with Joe Burrow winning MVP, Lucas. Like, I know they didn't make the playoffs, but he had like 47 touchdowns and 7 interceptions, something
yeah. He
crazy.
was very valuable to his team for sure, without a
Lamar,
doubt.
they just didn't want to give another MVP. He shouldn't have won last year, and he should have won
No,
this year.
yeah,
So it should have, so they kind of was just
it
like,
evens
well,
out. It
it
evens
evens
out for
out. You got
Lamar.
your MVP last year, but you
Yeah,
really should have. Yeah, it's weird. So at 31, who do you have here? Because there's a lot of good players here. I think Kenneth
yeah.
Grant's the obvious one, right?
I
Maybe
think that
not.
they would. I mean, the way Mahomes got ragdolled in the Super Bowl by that Eagles pass rush, I think they sprint the card in for Josh Simmons here. I think they see Josh Simmons, who could potentially be the number one tackle in this class, fall all the way to 31. And they have a significant need when it comes to protecting Mahomes. I think they would be just ecstatic with the way this board has gone. And I would say Josh Simmons here. I think easily the number one priority for the Chiefs in this draft. While I love Kenneth Grant and think he's a great player, I think OT is a huge, huge need for the
Yeah,
Chiefs.
I agree. I agree. I mean, look, those were the only two that I'd be considering there, right? So
Yeah.
I'll pick Josh Simmons. I mean, Jalen Moore's not going to cut it there. So here's where it gets interesting. Kenneth Grant. It's crazy that no safeties in the first round, but like, I guess Philly could take Malachi Starks or Nick Emenwari if they're there, and that would make a lot of sense. But with the loss of Milton Williams, it kind of seems like Kenneth Grant makes a lot of sense. I know they're a little different. Like Kenneth Grant's more of a run defender. Milton Williams, didn't he have a lot of sacks last season?
Yeah, he was pretty good in the pressure department, I think.
Yeah, so they're different types of defensive tackles, but I think they'd only be considering Nick Scourton, Kenneth Grant, Malachi Starks here. So that's the first round. Shall we go into round 2? Who do the Cleveland Browns take at 33? Because I think I know who you're going to take here.
Yeah, they've been super linked to him over the last few days. Andrew Barry said that the one guy who may be faster than Lamar Jackson at the quarterback position is Jalen Milroe. And I think that he is kind of the final addition to that quarterback room for them, with Joe Flacco and Kenny Pickett, and now they add Jalen Milroe. It's kind of similar to how it would be for the Giants, where they've got Russ, Jameis, and Shador, where they've got 3 shots at the position. You got 3 shots for the Browns at the position, and you got just a dynamic quarterback with a lot of upside in Jalen Milroe. If they can get Joe Flacco to kind of teach him the reins of how to play the position a little better, I think that it could be an interesting fit, and it would hopefully buy Stefanski another year, as long as this year's not a disaster there, I would think.
And look at this here, by the way. I agree. I think Milroe is a good fit there with the Browns. I think his upside is obviously vast. He just needs to learn how to play quarterback a little better. His processing needs a little bit of work, but we've said it. His SIS on target percentage was first among the quarterback prospects, right, Lucas? So it's like everyone's saying his accuracy is the biggest issue. Like most of the throws that we make in the NFL, like he was good at, right? That takes away like pressures and certain coverages, right?
Yeah, he was like number 5. I think Dart was number 1 by a
Oh, Dart was
mile.
one. Got it. Got it. Milroe is
Milroe's up
top
there.
5.
Milroe's up there in the standard, like, on script type of throws. So yeah, he's a little more accurate than people are giving him credit for, but he just has these big misses, obviously, that get kind of covered by the media and on social media. They love showing those sexy misses
Yeah.
when a quarterback just misses a receiver by, yards and it ends up in the hands of a DB or on the ground. So,
So look what happens here though for Minnesota. They were going to take Starks at 24. They trade back. They get a third and a fifth, and they still take Malachi Starks at 34, 10 picks later. So, I
yep.
mean, I think it makes a lot of sense. They've been linked to him. I think that's who they would take if they kept the pick at 24 and they just get him at 34, just because the value of the safety position has kind of dwindled in recent years in drafts. So I think like I know Malachi Starks is going to be a stud safety, and so will Emenwari, and so will Xavier Watts. But like those guys are going to fall; it's inevitable. So who do you got at
Yep.
35?
So I think the Titans are pretty happy with who they see at the top of the board right there. I think that they need to get Cam Ward some weapons, that's for sure. I mean, you got Calvin Ridley as your number one receiver right now, who's like 30 years old, I'm pretty sure, and is definitely on the wrong side of the prime of his career. They obviously spent a premium pick on Traylon Burks a couple of years ago, and that hasn't worked out so far. Unfortunately, a lot of injuries that he's dealt with and just hasn't seen the field all that much in the last couple of years. And I think Luther Burden is in a similar mold to Traylon Burks. He's a little smaller, but he's still thick like Burks is. He can make guys miss. He can run through you. I think there's a lot of things Luther Burden could add to this offense, and I think that this would be a phenomenal weapon to give Cam Ward, to give to your rookie quarterback.
Yeah, I love that pick. You know how high I am on Burden. I think he's the third best or fourth best receiver in this class if we include Travis Hunter as a receiver. And I had him as my wide receiver one up until more tape that I watched, and Higgins eclipsed him, Hunter eclipsed him, Tet eclipsed him barely, but I think him and Tetero McMillan are very close in terms of talent and upside. But this pick's interesting, right? Because they took Mason Graham, we took at 5, right? So they have a need at wide receiver, tight end, D-line, but tight end, I think they're pretty happy with Brendan Strange. Like, I don't know why people are so hell-bent on them being like, okay, we are going to draft the tight end. No, I don't think they even consider Tyler Warren at pick 5. Now, if they take Tyler Warren at pick 5, I'm going to look really dumb. But I think here, Jaden Higgins would make sense, but they have BTJ, right? So they don't need Jaden Higgins. They took a defensive lineman. I'm going to say might shock you. I'm going to say this is who they're going to take. Wow, they really aren't high on him. Nick Emenwari.
Oh my. I like that though.
I mean, they have a needed safety. I don't know why they're so low on Nick Emenwari, but yeah, I mean, they have Kevin Winston ahead of them, who I like, but like, I'd probably pick Nick Emenwari before him. But yeah, I mean, that's who I would take at that pick. They have a need there. I think, taking Jaden Higgins there would be redundant with who they have in BTJ. I think they're going to take a receiver like Jalen Royals in round 3 or somebody like that, or Torrey Horton. Gladstone knows what he's doing though, so I think that would
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed. What's really funny is that I actually had the Jags and Vikings flip-flopping those safeties. I have both of them taking Starks and Emenwari in my mock, but just flip-flopped. So the Raiders now at 37. I think that there's a couple guys they're considering here based off of meetings and, perceived interest. And they're both needs, I think. So on the offensive line, I think they're looking at Josh Connerly here. I think Connerly is a guy who could be going in the first round for sure. Back end of the first round, early day 2. I think that's probably the range. But they have a significant need at corner, and they've been attached to Benjamin Morrison as well. I think that the need is a little worse at corner. So I think I'm going to go with Morrison here, and that's who I have them taking in my 7-round mock. So yeah, we'll go Morrison to the Raiders here.
I like
He got
Morrison.
hurt. Yeah, he got hurt. He had like a hip injury, I think, this year, but he was really, really good last year. Definitely regarded as like a top 20 guy in the class. And then the injury really probably tanked his stock a little bit. So
Yeah, in New England here, since they took Will Campbell, they're not going to take Connerly here. I'm going to go with a little bit of a wild card pick here. They have Stephon Diggs, but I just think Jaden Higgins makes a lot of sense here. Like, I really do.
Nice.
I think that's an A plus plus pick. I think you're getting the best receiver not named Travis Hunter in the draft at pick 38. So you get Will Campbell there, you have Jaden Higgins there, and then they'll probably take a guy like DJ Giddens, RJ Harvey, Cam Scatterbo, someone like that at the running back position round 3. But I would take Jaden Higgins there for sure.
Okay, so I think that if the board goes like this, I think that they're going to cut on day 2. They're going to cut to the Browns war, or the Bears war room, and you're going to see Ben Johnson literally sprinting that draft card with Travion Henderson
I knew it.
on
Yeah.
the card. You are going to see him just get that in immediately, and there are going to be a lot of high fives and handshakes in that war room for sure, and you're going to see him on film. I mean, Travion Henderson, he is going to be there. He's going to be Ben Johnson's new Jahmyr Gibbs, the small dynamic weapon in the pass game at the running back position. And that's a great compliment to Roschon Johnson with his ability to be a goal line, big back plotter type of running back who will get you the yards on early downs. I think that's going to be a great combo of running backs for the Bears. And I think they are surprised that he got out of the first round and happy to see him here at 39.
Yeah, no, for 100%, Lucas. And I think here with this pick with the Saints, it's a little interesting. I know it's not considered a need, but I think they go Josh Connolly here. Like, they have Fuaga. They have some other linemen, but I think Connolly would be an upgrade, someone they can build off of, just build in the trenches. They took Jalen Walker with their first round pick, and if they take Connolly at, I think, a discount, because I like Connolly, I think I have a first round grade on him. They take him at 40. I think that's a great pick.
Nice. Yeah, I think the Bears would be in on him here, but he's not available. Man, I'm having some trouble deciding who the Bears could go with here. But you had Omar Norman Lott is up there at the top, right? He's
Yep.
literally the top guy. Wow. Okay, that's crazy. So I think consensus Omar Norman Lott is ranked around like 60 or 70 right now, but PFF is a lot higher on him. And I think the Bears are high on him. They had him in for a meeting. This is who I had them taking at 41 in my mock as well. So I think I was going to be between Omar Norman Lott and maybe Mason Taylor here, but let's go with Norman Lott. Add some more pressure to that defensive line for the Bears. Shamar Stewart and Omar Norman Lott. I think they're happy with that haul.
That's a good pick for sure. I don't know if he could be a 3-down guy, but I mean, he certainly had put up some great numbers last year. So 42 is a little interesting, right? So first pick, it was Membu, correct? I believe. Yeah, Membu, right?
For the Jets, yes.
Membu here. Okay. Well, Mason Taylor, they'll consider here. I don't think they'll take Mason Taylor. D-line, I think they go Tyleik Williams here.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Nice.
Which sucks for the Niners because that's, a guy they would have considered at 43. If I was picking at 43, I actually think I know who they're going to take at 43.
Do
And
you?
it's going to be really, really bad to the Niner fans, and you're going to be really pissed off with it. But they've met with him about 40 times, went to his pro day. He went to their pro day in San Francisco. There's a crosstown connection. Ayuk's hurt for a while.
Yeah, okay. That's what I
think
thought.
that's who
That's
they're
what I
going
thought
to
you were
take,
thinking.
personally. I don't think that's who they should take. I like him a lot. I mean, he's really a weird prospect because we won't say his name, but he has some highlights that are like, this is a wide receiver 1 in the National Football League. And then he has the drop percentage that's super high. And you're like, well, I don't know about that, but I do think that's who they would take. But who are you taking here? Who do you think they take?
Yeah, so like you said, Tyleik would be nice for them. They could use a contributor on the interior. They could maybe use a contributor on the offensive line on the interior. They've been linked to Nick Scorton and Maxwell Hairston here, who are near the top of the board. So I think that they could consider both of those players. I think that they're in on I mean, the thing is, they took Michael, so Scorton probably not going to be the pick here, considering that would just give you a number 3 edge and maybe even a number 4, depending on what they think of Yetur Gross Matos. So yeah, I think Elik Manor, I think he could be the pick here. If they decide that they want to move on from Ayuk soon, um, they could end up dealing him and hoping to find that production with Io Manor going forward. So yeah, I think let's go with him here.
Yeah, that's who I think they're going to take. I really do.
Local guy.
Yeah,
So
they love those local dudes. So let's just recap for Niner fans watching. The Niners are without a defensive tackle in this draft through 2 rounds. FYI. So, and the depth runs out fast once you get past round 2 for these defensive tackles. Personally, you don't want to end up with Deion Walker and having to hopefully develop him, in round 4.
there's some
So
guys on the board still though. You got Darius Alexander still available.
I don't. He's not going to fall to 75.
Yeah, I don't know. You got some guys down the board though, so we'll see. Just depends on who they've done their homework on. So
Okay, who do you got with Dallas? Or I'm with Dallas. That's
yeah,
correct.
this is
Okay.
you.
Okay, this is a little interesting here. It's a little interesting. I think they could definitely take Cam Scatterboo here. I know you're a little lower on him than I am. I think he's a really good
Wow, I
player.
just I just don't expect him to be the 4th back off the board, you know? Like I would be surprised if he came off the board before Quinshawn, and
That's who I think they're going to take here.
wow.
Yeah.
I
So
mean,
that
they
I
need
had
the
them
running back
taking
bad.
offense. So they take Teteroa McMillan at 12, Quinshawn Judkins at 44. I think they'll consider Scatterboo, but I think the speed questions are valid for sure. And I think Judkins is more of a complete back right now. Not to say Scatterboo can't be a better NFL player than him, but I think they take Judkins there.
Nice. Yeah, definitely a significant need, I would say. So, I think I'm going to do what I did in my 7-round mock here for the Colts at 45. And this is just going with a player that they've been affiliated with. And I think that's going to be Alfred Collins on the interior. So another name on the interior D line that you can get. You might have to search him. He might not be that high on PFF. Oh, he's not bad. So yeah, we're going Alfred Collins here. I was considering Landon Jackson heavily because Chris Ballard loves drafting athletic players, and Landon Jackson is one of the freakiest athletes you'll see in this draft. But they took Latu last year, and they didn't even get him enough play time, so they can't be trying to take another developmental edge rusher, I wouldn't say, when they got Kwity Paye, who's been good. And then I think that they still have Samson Ebukam, I'm pretty sure. So unless he went somewhere else, I don't know. I got to fact check that real quick. So you can make your pick here with the Falcons while I fact check that.
So they take Mike Green at 15, so edge is off the board. I think this one's pretty obviously Trey Amos. I think that's who they're going to take. I've been hearing he might go round 1. So if he falls there to the Falcons at 46, even though PFF doesn't say they have a need there, I think they probably do take a corner in the first few picks.
I like Trey Amos a lot. He's a good player. Yeah, the Colts do have a Bukum, by the way, so that was accurate. I was not spreading misinformation there. Who did you have the Cardinals take in the first round? Was it a D tackle?
Jahdae Barron.
Oh, they took Jahdae Barron. Okay.
Yeah, Jahdae.
Yeah, I think that they could use an impact playmaker off the edge. I love Landon Jackson personally here, but they have been affiliated with both Nick Scorton and Princely Umanmielen. I think that, Scorton's higher on the consensus board. He's higher on this PFF board too. So I think I'm just going to go with Scorton. That's also who I have them taking in my mock here. So I think he'd be
a expected top 15 pick preseason. So
yeah, he was really good at Purdue last year, I think, and then transferred to Texas A&M where nobody was productive. So on that defensive line, him and Shamar Stewart both kind of were just playing weird positions. They were playing a lot of like 3 tech and like 4 eye and stuff, and just weren't really getting a lot of opportunities to rush the passer from out wide where they might in the NFL. So
Yeah, so the Dolphins here, this pick is obvious, going to be Maxwell Hairston. They need a corner. They took Kelvin Banks round 1, right? So am I tripping? They took Kelvin Banks right in this mock. Yeah. So they're going to take a corner. I'm pretty confident they do that. And they take Maxwell Hairston. So they get a Jalen Ramsey type of replacement, and then they improve the offensive line. So to me, that's super important. They get both of those down, and now you're on to the Bengals pick.
nice. So the Bengals here. I am looking at who they met with. So they drafted Walter Nolan in the first round, I believe. I think that they are sad that they didn't get an edge rusher in the first round. They have had a 30 with Ariante Ursery, who they have a significant need on the interior O line, and Ursery has been a name that has been talked about as potentially converting to guard because his arms are a little bit short. They're like in the 33 range, but again, like I think that there's a playmaker on defense chilling right there on at the edge, and I just think Landon Jackson's the guy they should go with here. I think that he like Shamar Stewart with being able. Oh wait, no, he's not on the Niners in this. He's on the Bears. But in my mock, I had him to the Niners where he could play, across from Nick Bosa, where he wouldn't have a lot of pressure on him when it comes to rushing the passer. Like Bosa's going to eat up those double teams on the one side. So in this scenario, if the Bengals extend Hendrickson, you've got Hendrickson on the other side eating up those double teams. It's going to make it a lot easier for Landon Jackson early on in his career to develop as a pass rusher. This is a guy who is a little bit raw when it comes to rushing the passer, but he's a very good contributor in the run game defensively. So I think this would be a home run pick for Cincy here.
I think Seattle's going to go Princely, you man me Ellen, here.
Princely.
I'll just say Princely, and I feel disrespectful to him because he hopped on my TikTok live like a month back, and he was really cool. I'm sorry if I mispronounce your last name, for lack of better words. Uman Mielin. How do you say it? Uman Mielin?
Uman Mielen, I believe.
Uman
I
Mielin.
think.
Uman Mielin.
Yeah.
Uman Mielin. Uman Mielin. Uman Mielin. Okay, that's who
There
the
you
Seahawks
go.
are taking at 50. What do you got at 51? They haven't needed edge rusher. I don't have to explain more. They took Zabel in the first. Seahawks are taking Uman Mielin.
Okay, so we've got Denver here.
Yeah, it took Hampton round 1.
And yeah, they took a running back. I think that they have been heavily connected to Mason Taylor, apparently in this draft cycle. And that is a significant need, I think, at tight end for the Broncos. They did bring in Evan Ingram. He's kind of older. He's the H tight end that you kind of move along the line of scrimmage, put in the slot. He's not your inline blocking tight end like I think Mason Taylor probably profiles. I think they have a need on the interior as well. So I think that they're kind of probably in between Mason Taylor and a D tackle here, but I am leaning Mason Taylor. So we're going Taylor here at 51 to Denver.
Cool. Back on the clock is Seattle. So we get the edge rusher. We get the guard who can also be a center in Gray Zabel. Here, I think, is where they go wide receiver. I don't think it's Jack Besh. I think that they actually go Trey Harris here.
Ooh.
I do. I think
you need a big X. You need an
big
X
X,
for sure.
right? Like, and we look at the advanced metrics. I mean, he had the best advanced metrics of any wide receiver in all of football last year, college football. So I think he is definitely going to outperform this draft position. I'm really high on him. I think he's going to be a really good NFL player. And they can't really take Jack Besh because then they're getting 2 Cooper Kupps basically on that team, and then 3 Cooper Kupps if you add JSN. So you kind of need like a different type of receiver than JSN and Kupp. And obviously Trey Harris brings that on the outside. His route tree needs some work, but I like him at 52 to the Seahawks.
Yep. So Tampa, they need to be adding pieces on defense. I think they lost Carlton Davis in free agency this year to the Patriots. They drafted Jihad Campbell, but I think they need to be going with a corner here, and they're going to take one of the last few remaining, potential day one starters, and that's going to be Azareé Thomas here. Um, physical man press corner. Kind of reminds me of Carlton Davis, I would say, in that way. So I think that he's just could be a pretty good fit for Todd Bowles' defense.
I agree. Green Bay
Keep him
obviously.
local in Florida as well. Although obviously,
Yeah,
Tampa and
Surtain.
Tallahassee. I mean, Tallahassee's kind of North Florida, but it's
Yeah,
fairly local, same state.
Surtain has those boys cooking at corner. By the way, like he's their corner
Yeah.
coach, Surtain Senior, and Renardo Green. Like people are like, why did he go in round 2? And it turns out he was a stud, right? So like, it seems like whatever they're cooking, like Azareé could be like the Renardo Green of this year, where people are like, well, is it 53 a little too high? And he turns out to be an absolute stud because he was running pretty slow on his pro day, I remember, and I think
Yeah,
that
he did not have great speed. So,
yeah.
but there have been some other corners who have Xavier Howard, I think, ran like a 4.58 or something. So that was kind of like one of the comps that I saw when it comes to athleticism.
I think the Packers will go wide receiver here. It's tough. Jack Besh makes a lot of sense, but my gut feeling is saying they go Jalen Royals here at
Ooh.
54. That might be a little high. I like Jalen Royals a lot, but I think he'd be an immediate upgrade over Sausage Hands Wicks, who would be the best receiver in all of football if he could actually catch. Um,
Uh-huh.
but he's like if man, basically. They say like Herbert is if man.
Yeah.
That's Dontavian Wicks. If he could catch, he'd be with his separation. But you put Royals next to Jaden Reed and Christian Watson and Romeo Dobbs. Like he probably plays a little more than Romeo next year. Christian's always hurt anyways. Like I think Royals can be used in a variety of different ways. Like I don't think he has to primarily be on the outside or in the slot. I think he's pretty versatile, in my personal opinion. When I watched this tape, his separation numbers are pretty good. Like I think it makes a lot of sense. Jack Besh would be a little more of a slot guy, and they have Jaden Reed, so I think I know Royals can be possibly used in the slot as well, but I just think he's a little more versatile.
Yeah, he's definitely versatile. He's an interesting player, I would say, at receiver, but he's got good size. So the Chargers, they took Loveland in round 1, I believe.
Yep.
So I still think they have got a need on the interior defensive line. So I think Darius Alexander's definitely in the cards here. I think that they would consider running back here as well. However, I think the running back they would consider is a little bit redundant with Najee Harris. I was thinking maybe Caleb Johnson, but he is a little too similar to Najee Harris for my liking here for them. So I think we'll go Darius Alexander here. Another player from that Toledo defense, man.
I like
Quinyon
him a
Mitchell
lot.
last year. They got some dudes on
Dude,
that Toledo
he is like
defense.
the best run defender at D line in this class, isn't he? Like him or Tyleek. One of them is like
Yeah, I would say Tyleek's probably in front of him in that regard, but I mean,
Mason Graham, maybe.
you gotta look at Alexander's level of competition a little bit, probably playing in the MAC, but he's a
Yeah,
crazy athlete. I'm excited for what he can do in the NFL. That like I think that if he was playing in the SEC or the Big Ten, he'd probably be cemented, as a first rounder, like top 25 guy, probably.
for sure. And the Bills at 30 here, or at 56, they took Egbuka in this mock at 30. There's a variety of different directions here, but I think they prioritize the trenches and they take TJ Sanders here.
Ooh, nice. Yeah, I
It
think
might
that
be a
that's a
little bit
need.
high on some people's boards, but like they'll consider Xavier Watts. But I think they haven't prioritized the trenches in the past. I think that's going to be something they do early on in this draft.
So we got the Panthers here, and you took Will Johnson for them at 8,
Yep. Kind of a
which,
wild one because
yeah,
everyone's like
was
Jalen Walker's locked in at 8, but Will Johnson,
yeah,
yeah,
like the edge need is just out of this world for them. But Will Johnson is nice across from JC Horn. Like that could give you 2 lockdown corners. So which is the way you take pressure off of the pass rush, by having corners that can cover for 5-6 seconds in a play, So really funny. who you were highlighting there, because I believe that's who I'm going to take here for the Panthers. It's going to be Femi Oladejo. Um, they met with him. A lot of teams have met with him. This is a guy who is explosive, not very productive as a pass rusher, but
Say your
he.
true thoughts. What is he?
So I've kind of been saying that he's a little bit of an industry plant the last couple of weeks, just because he's been kind of pushed up the board a lot in recent weeks. It seems like he was pretty good at the Senior Bowl. It's just he really wasn't productive. And to be fair, he was converting from off-ball linebacker. I believe he only had 1 year of being a true edge rusher this last season. So he's learning the position still. He's a developmental player, which is probably not really what the Panthers are looking for. They're looking for somebody who can play day one, but I'm sure they'll throw him into the fire with the draft capital that they're giving him here. He's a good enough run defender to be an immediate contributor, early downs. So the question is, will he stay on the field on third down, or can they find, a player that they can take him off for, or do they just develop that? Because he's explosive, he's got projectability when it comes to being a pass rusher. It's just there's guys that I think are better, better bets when it comes to rushing the passer in this range, probably like maybe even Braden Swinson. But I know the Panthers have been linked to Oladejo. So
58 here is interesting. Who did you take at 25? Golden, right?
Golden. Yeah, Golden.
Okay, so they need a lineman here. I think they're going to take Donovan Jackson.
Ooh,
I mean, it's kind of obvious
nice.
at this point. Ursary they'll consider, but Donovan Jackson has some versatility. I don't think he's going to be a tackle. I think he's going to be a guard, but they have needs at both, obviously, at this point. And you could maybe try him out of tackle. He held his own when Simmons went down, so like maybe he can do it, but I don't think so against like the bigger players in the NFL because he's a bit undersized. But still, I think he's a solid player.
All right. Well, this makes it kind of tough here with this Ravens pick. The Ravens are kind of hard to draft for because it doesn't feel like they've got a ton of needs. Truthfully, they met with a lot of tackles, like day two, like round 4 tackles. So they might be looking into trying to draft a future tackle. So I'm kind of looking at 2 guys here. I'm looking at Ariante Ursary when it comes to that position, when it comes to that tackle of the future. And I'm looking at Carson Schwessinger at linebacker. I think Carson Schwessinger is an amazing player. And I think this would just be a steal here where they're getting him. I think he's falling. He's not falling a ton, I guess, but I think that we could see him probably as early as like 35-ish, probably. They've got Roquan Smith, but I think Carson Schwessinger would be a great pick here for him. So that's who I have them taking in my 30 round mock. So we're gonna do it again here at what is this, 59? Yeah, 59.
That's cool. I agree. I think Carson is underrated. I think he improved tremendously at UCLA this last year. So did Femi, and that defense was obviously amazing 2 years ago when they had whatever his name is, who's the DC at Lynn's son when he was the DC at UCLA, and now he's at the DC at USC. But they were pretty good last year too. I mean, they had a few good games because their offense was horrible, so they needed their defense to stay in games. They played pretty well against Penn State for a while and pretty well against some good opponents, and I think they're Carson and Femi were big part of that. It's funny because they're opposing players, like Carson's an excellent pass defender. Femi is an excellent run defender, but I just don't see much pass rush upside for Femi. And obviously with linebackers, it's a little different. But I think Carson's one of the more underrated players in the draft, so I like that pick. Pick 60.
Yeah,
So
I think. Can
yeah,
I
go
add
ahead.
something really quick? So I think that So Schwessinger actually only started 1 year for UCLA, and that was this year. And I believe that them starting him at linebacker is kind of part of what kicked Oladejo down to the edge to play off the edge, because they were so excited to see what Schwessinger could do there. So kind
Benefited
of
both of them.
converted. Yeah, it kind of did end up benefiting both of them. So interesting.
It's cool. Yeah. So at 60, we took Tyler Booker in round 1. I could see edge rusher. Kyle Williams is too JMO-ish for me to draft there for them. It's not like a bad thing. It's just like unless they're not going to pay JMO, like Kyle Williams could be an option here. This one's tough. I could see Jack Besh here. I could see
Ooh,
it. I know a little like Amon Ra in a little ways, but he definitely is 6'2", he's bigger, right? So like can do some versatile things. I think he's gonna end up being a steal. And they have a need for their wide receiver 3 and 4, right? Like Tim Patrick, don't they still have? Like he's their wide receiver
yeah,
3?
Tim Patrick is currently like probably their X, I would say. I mean, depend like he might play Z. I think that Tim Patrick is kind of more so your prototypical X than Jamison Williams is. So, but yeah, Jack Besh can, I mean, he can block. He played tight end a little bit in college early on. So he can block. He's aggressive. He would be probably what Dan Campbell's looking for with Tim Patrick, you know? So,
Yeah, so that's kind of the pick I have there. They could absolutely go edge rusher. I'm not high on Braden Swinson, to be honest. I'm not that high on Tua Moluau. The more I watch his tape, even though he was he's a 5-star guy, right? Like he was a great recruit. They don't even have Jack Sawyer on here. I think they'd consider Jack Sawyer at 60, to be honest. I know he's down here at
yeah.
92. I think they'd consider him, but I ended up going with Jack Bash.
So we got the commies here at 61, and they took Iziraku, I believe, in the first round. So they got their edge need out of the way.
Yep.
Um, I think they are considering interior O line here, probably. I gotta really quickly fact check with their meetings, I believe, because it's based on my mock. They took Wyatt Milam, and they did bring him in on a 30 visit. So I think that you're probably looking at Milam or Ursary here, with Ursary still being on the board. And man, let's just go with Milam. Let's keep it stock with what I've done so far. I think both of them are kind of Milam a little more technical right now, like put up good film and really good PFF run blocking and pass blocking grades, but a significantly worse athlete than Ariante Ursary. And then if you were looking for more of a projectable player, you would probably take Ursary. But yeah, I think Wyatt Milam right now type player. I think he, makes an immediate impact on that offensive line.
So we got 3 picks here in this episode. And again, if you missed this, we've been on for an hour and 30 minutes with these 2 mocks. Some great insights, some great information here. This 2-round mock will be available on YouTube after, and of course X if you want to search back. So here at 62, this is my second to last pick. This is a little interesting because I took Emeka Egbuka and then I took TJ Sanders. I think they're going to take Xavier Watts here. The talent is too vast. Like Xavier Watts is good. I think he raised his stock more than a lot of people give him credit for throughout the college football playoff. I think he's a great player, and I know they've been linked to safeties in this draft, corners and safeties, and you can never have enough safeties, So I think that's probably a solid pick considering the corners aren't as established at that point in the draft.
Nice. So Kansas City here at 63, they took Josh Simmons with their first pick, tackle. They could double dip on the O line. I think they've been, they had Ariante Ursary in on a 30. I know I've talked about him a lot here. That's a player I really like a lot. Like I think wherever he goes, if he's going in this range, that it's going to be a steal. I think that the Chiefs, considering they already drafted their, hopeful left tackle, I think they've got a significant need at running back and really want to get dynamic at that position. And I think Caleb Johnson is the guy here for them at 63, to be honest.
I like
Yeah,
it.
we're going Caleb Johnson.
I like it. This is where it gets interesting for the Eagles. So the first pick I had, who did I have for the Eagles? Kenneth Grant, D tackle, right?
Steal.
I know. I'm just thinking here. Oh man, I don't think they go wide receiver. I know a lot of people have been like, "Oh, they need a wide." Like do they really? Like, I don't think they're gonna go wide receiver. I think they go to LaMelo. Wow, that's it. I think
Trenches,
that's what they
baby.
go. Trenches, Josh Sweat replacement, and Milton Williams replacement. So
Yeah.
that is our draft. Oh my gosh, it only lets us see the first round. Where's the second round?
Thanks,
Full results.
PFF.
There we go. Round two. We got all these results. I'll print them out. But thank you, Lucas, for hopping on and doing this again. This will be available on YouTube and X. 2 rounds. Next week, I'll be live for 3 hours during the NFL draft for a show, live reacting, analyzing each pick. So make sure you hop on for that. That'll be available on TikTok, YouTube, and X. And thank you, Lucas, one of the best evaluators in the business, for spending an hour and a half of his time evaluating these prospects. I mean, it's very exciting. We're going to see a lot of time. I mean, look at the board there. At that point, you still have a ton of guys. I mean, RJ
Some
Harvey,
dudes.
round 3, Harold Fannin, round 3, Jack Sawyer, round 3, guys that were originally seen as like, okay, Cam Scattergood,
Ursery,
round 3,
Darian Porter.
Yep, Darian Porter, who could go round 1, fall into round 3. There's always a few of those guys. Last year we saw Troy Franklin fall to round 3, who wasn't used properly. I'm still in on Troy Franklin, to be honest. But yeah, thank you for coming on. It's going to be an exciting week.
Yep. 7 days away, bro. 7 days away.
7
I'm